The tweaker is the result of 4 brutal years of development where I took all of my favorite vintage analog compressors, my favorite tricks and aspects of what they do and how they do it. I smashed them into one piece of hardware, and then I added some controls that makes it go above and beyond. So I have created what I think is the coolest, most flexible compressor ever made. So I take traditional compressor controls, and the first thing I do is I expand them outwards in both directions. The attack on this thing goes from 20 microseconds all the way up to 70 milliseconds. So you can completely obliterate transients, or you can completely preserve them. It's up to you. The release control has 2 modes. A fast mode, which is a classic release, the way you know on every other compressor. It goes from 20 milliseconds, which is also blazingly fast for a release, to 500 milliseconds, a nice medium release. If you go to dual by hitting this switch, you now have 2 releases. This puts it in a mode much like the old vintage Optos, like the LA2A. This will let go of your gain reduction in 2 stages. The first half, very fast, and the second half, very slow. So at its slowest setting over here, if I turn off the material going into the compressor and you watch it let go, it will go slower and slower, and then it's gone. 7.5 seconds release on the slowest release. So with this compressor, the attack and release controls 20 microseconds and 20 milliseconds, 70 milliseconds to 7,500 milliseconds in 2 stages, and everything in between. And that's just the attack and release. The curve control on this thing is a ratio and knee control combined. So you go from soft knee 2-to-1 through to 4-to-1 medium knee, up to 30-to-1 hard knee limiting. This is brutally aggressive limiting at this end of the spectrum. The metering here is a patented tri-metering system we've come up with, where you can see at a glance all 3 of your levels: input, output, and gain reduction. Gain reduction was specifically made a single point rather than a bar graph because it makes it very easy to see as I adjust the release, the swing of the compression changing. You can see the movement of your gain reduction very, very clearly with this compressor. And so what happens is over time, seeing all 3 of these levels at once, your ear can become attuned to how the swing of your compression changes the sound of the input into the groove of the output. It will train your ears. It's a remarkable tool. Coming over here, we have a drive control. This is a clean to saturated to outright distorted. This compressor will get very filthy in a distinctly 70s way. This is transistor discrete VCA distortion at its finest. It's a warm, filthy kind of grime. You have a wet-dry control where your dry is at unity. This is post-VCA, 100% wet, and this is a makeup gain post-VCA. These two controls together will interact and allow you to control both the relative and the absolute levels of both your wet and dry signal path. This is your threshold control with an over-threshold light. You can see exactly when compression is beginning before the gain reduction meter even registers anything. So you can learn to hear when you're starting to grab transients before your meter tells you you're registering significant compression. And then these 2 controls here are the heart of the beast. This is the side chain shaper. This is multiple filters inside the detector only, not the audio path. This lets you tell this compressor exactly what to listen for and what to compress, independent of whatever may or may not be loudest. You can get this compressor to hear what you hear and fix what you want fixed. So if you want to get in on the peakiness of a harsh vocal, the brittleness of cymbals, the aggressive sound of the high frequencies on an acoustic guitar, anything in between, you can do it with these controls. You have basic high-pass filters at multiple frequencies. You have a treble smash, which will grab everything over 3K and not let go. It's very aggressive, very softening on the high frequencies like analog tape. And then this switch here is edge contour. That activates this knob, which is 2 shelves in tandem and oppositional. As you turn this knob to the left, the compressor becomes more responsive to bass and less responsive to upper mids and treble. As you turn it to the right, the compressor becomes less responsive to bass and low mids and more responsive to upper mids and treble, and everything in between. The combination of all these factors combined There's nothing this box can't do. I'm going to be doing videos coming up where side by side I will show this thing split screen next to a classic vintage LA2A on a vocal, a distressor on the drum bus, an API 2500 on the mix bus, even an old Valley People Dynamite doing some filthy smash on a hip hop beat. You will see the gain reduction meters moving identically. You will see the output levels moving identically, and I'll be flipping back and forth between the sounds. You will struggle to hear the difference between the two. This is the most versatile compressor on the planet, and I'm so psyched that it's finally out.
Wow, this is pretty impressive. Can we hear something, you know?
Absolutely.
Coming through the...
Yeah, sure. This is my best. I'm going to go for audibility of effect rather than beautiful sound here. So at its fastest, digging in with the attack and the release at their absolute fastest.
That's in and out?
Yeah, you're just brutally shaving off all the transients here. Now, if I turn the compression all the way down and the drive all the way down and engage the compressor, that's the dry signal. This box isn't really doing much of anything. No compression, just distortion. Filthy.
Yeah.
Second and third order harmonics, the classic sound. Back that off, and now start to compress. Let me set my contour to flat. Now I'm smashing again. As I open up this attack, you'll hear very clearly. Get your punch back. If I switch to the dual stage release, it's a very dry, very tight sound to the compression versus the fast release, which is a wetter sound, smushier sound. Now that I've got some compression going, let me get more aggressive with the attack. I'm going to use my edge contour to taper how this groove moves up and down. You got your down and your up. I'm going to turn it all the way up so that it's aggressively grabbing the treble. And now I have heavy on the downbeat groove. If I turn this to the left, I get my hi-hat back, I get a totally different bounce to my beat. So I can do anything in between. Get some dance on the hi-hat, blend this in parallel. That's the dry signal. You get a very punchy sound with a redefined groove and a lot of bounce. You want totally invisible compression, smooth and warm. You want totally aggressive, smashing everything in sight and everything in between. This box can do it.
Shit is awesome.
I'll be damned. That's so dope. Look at these two strangers.
What up, what up?
No, actually, the shit is actually really awesome. Plugins are cool too.